How y'all doing? How y'all doing? Welcome to the Friday Experience. My name is Pastor Lawrence Dufront, and I will be your host for the day. Listen, if you haven't already, please text LSMin to 24251 so that you can join our text group. Also, you can go to www.lawrencedufront.com. If you feel the need to donate, that is where the donations will be happening. Or you can go to Cash App, of course, $Lawsuit. Let me know where you're listening from. I'd like to know how far the ministry is spreading. So let me know where you are listening from. And let me know how y'all doing. Y'all feeling good? Y'all feeling great? Feeling great? Feeling good? How are you? I am feeling good, tired, excited to rest. And so that is what I'm getting ready to do. Also, the course starts tomorrow, the Restoring Masculinity course. So if you haven't registered, I guess today will be your last day. Yeah, I mean, you're going to want to register as soon as possible, because the course definitely does start tomorrow. So I'm excited about that. Hey, Sheila's good to see you. Feeling tired, but good. That's always a good thing. I'm actually there with you. Tired, but I feel good. I feel great. So what we're going to talk about today, I think, is extremely important. And I'm going to be honest with you. Man, this is one of those texts that preachers be preaching. I'm not going to preach, though, because if I preach, I won't be able to get into the conversation that I want to get into. But I do want to say this. It is not easy living a life of faith. Can I say that again? It is not easy living a life of faith. When you are trusting God, when you're believing God, when you're doing things on the strength of God, sometimes, no, not sometimes, it is generally very difficult, because God tends to do things that stretches our consciousness. God tends to do things that stretches our perspective. And for the difficulty comes in the fact that we lack community, generally speaking. So the church is supposed to be a community of believers, those who understand, believe, have even encountered the Spirit of God, the power of God. And so the church is supposed to be a community that's made up of believers. But in the Western world, if you're not a Christian, it can mess with your social status. So some people claim to be, and when I say Christian, I'm using that as an example. You know, I don't want to disrespect any other belief system, but in the Western world, being a Christian is like the thing, right? If you don't tote the Bible in some way or another, you get looked at a certain way. But in other worlds, you know, if we were in Egypt, let's say, and you claim to not be Muslim, it'd be a problem, right? But everybody who claims to be of the faith is not of the faith. Everybody who says Lord, Lord is not really of the kingdom. And in fact, I talked about that on my podcast with Marquise Johns, the latest podcast, the Lawrence Dufront podcast. If you haven't subscribed, you should really subscribe. And we kind of dealt with that a little bit. But because everybody is not truly a believer, everybody does not truly believe, or I should say everybody's belief, everybody's faith is not on the same level. Sometimes when you're working to live a life of faith, you find yourself in isolation. You find yourself kind of by yourself, because most people only know what they know. They only believe what they can believe. And it's like they can't trust in a miracle that doesn't impact them. You know, everybody has solutions, practical solutions, as long as it's not them. See, when it's them, all of a sudden their faith is on 10, right? When it's something that they want, when it's something that they need, they're asking for prayer, they're looking for faith. But it seems like when it's something that you want, if they're not in agreement with it, they spend more time trying to tell you how to not have faith in that than to be in agreement with faith. And I want to be very careful, because we need to deal with wisdom. And I was just talking to somebody about that. I won't say her name, but I was just talking to somebody about that, because it's complicated. You want to walk in wisdom. You don't want to be out here acting a fool. But at the same time, you want to also walk in the expansion of possibility, knowing that God can do some amazing and abundant things. And it's all about your alignment with God. It's all about your alignment with the Most High. It's all about what He says He's going to do in your life, which is why a relationship with God for me is always where I start. If you don't have a relationship with God, you cannot walk a life of faith. Hebrews 11 says, for those trying to memorize it, but Hebrews 11 verse 6. I'm just going to go to it because I'm not even trying to butcher it like that. Because without faith, without faith, it is impossible to please him. It's impossible to please God. For the one who comes to God must believe that he exists. See, that's the first part, right? And that he proves to be one who rewards those who seek him, right? So without faith, you can't please God. But if you're going to go to God, you must first believe that there is a God to go to, right? And then you have to believe that God is able to reward you for seeking him. And that can be interpreted in so many ways. But if you don't even have the faith to believe that there is God, right? That God is there, then where else are we going? Then if you don't have the faith to believe God will reward you for seeking him, rewarding you for seeking him doesn't mean he's going to give you what you ask for. But what that means is when you are seeking, it's never a waste of time to seek God, genuinely seeking God. Right? Genuinely. So relationship is the key to faith. Without relationship, without actually knowing God and seeking God and getting to know God, then your faith is altered now, and other emotions can mask as faith. Fear tends to imitate faith. Ego tends to imitate faith. Desperation tends to imitate faith, right? When you don't have a relationship with God, you allow these other emotions to imitate the faith that you're trying to exercise in God. Because when you trust God and believe God, then it's about what God says and not so much what you want. See, it's okay to desire something, but if you say your faith is in God, then you have to have enough faith in God for when he says no, and you have to have enough faith in God when it looks like it's going down. In other words, when it looks like it's getting worse. That is the true test of your faith. And I'm going to tell you right now, it is not easy to trust God when things look like they're getting worse. I wish I could sit here and try to tell you that your faith in God makes it easier. No. When things look like it's getting worse, it is that much harder to trust God. It requires so much more out of you to still believe that God is faithful, that God is good, especially if God gives you an affirmative yes. And then as you continue to walk with God, walk in favor with God, it looks as if it's a no. Right? It's extremely difficult. And the other thing is, it's even more difficult when it looks like a yes and you're seeing progression, but then it seems like God was too late. Have you ever felt like that? Like God, God said yes, but then it seems like as you're moving forward, it's as if God said yes too late. Like, I wish you had said yes sooner, or maybe I should have asked you sooner, right? It's as if the progressions of things just didn't happen quick enough. And now you find yourself in a situation where it looks like it's not even going to happen anymore. And God said yes, and things was looking forward, things were progressing better, but now it looks as if things are at a standstill. All right, let me go into this Bible text. It's Mark chapter 5, verse 21. Sorry, I didn't have time to make the whatchamacallit that I was doing. And I don't even think I really care, to be honest with you. But yeah, Mark chapter. Look, I'm all up in your business, right, Natalie? Listen. You're not alone. You're not alone, sis. You're not alone. You are not alone. Mark chapter 5, verse 21. That's where I'm starting, right? And I'm not going to read everything because there's so much to this story. And like I said, this joint got me in my preaching bag, but I'm not going to preach because then I might forget to talk about what I need to talk about. Because, if I was to preach this, I'll be here for hours or days, and I'm not trying to do that, right? So in Mark chapter 21, it says, first off, you should read 21 to the end of the chapter if you have time today. Just read through it and really meditate on kind of what's going on. It says, all right, when Jesus had crossed over again in the boat to the other side, right? So this is after the demoniac. He just healed the man who was possessed with a legion of demons. Healed that man. And it caused some economic downfall in the community, right? To the point where they said, you got to go, because some people would rather have money than have Jesus. But it says, when Jesus had crossed over again, right? Because now he's going to the other side. And so that lets you know that he went there just to save that man. And though they're kicking him out, saving that man was enough. To the other side, it says, man, I'm over here trying to read it. It said to the other side, a large crowd gathered around him, and he stayed by the seashore. And one of the synagogue officials named Jairus came, and upon seeing him, fell at his feet and pleaded with him earnestly, saying, my little daughter is at the point of death. Please come and lay your hands on her so that she will get well and live. And he, being Jesus, went off with him, and a large crowd was following him, pressing in on him. So here's the scenario. The father has a daughter who is sick, and he is saying, my daughter is sick, but I know that if you come and lay hands on her, then she will get better. And so all I need you to do is come through and lay hands on her. And what the scriptures say is that Jesus agrees, and he goes and he lays hands. Well, he goes on the way to lay hands on this girl. And so what that means then is that he said yes. The man made a request, and Jesus says yes. I want you to understand something. Once God starts moving, then that means he's agreed. This is important. This is important. I need you to understand. God is not a God that will tease you. He's not a God that will try to play with your emotions. God is not a God who's looking to get you excited simply to disappoint you. And I want to say that because a lot of us, we're used to that. We're used to people not fully delivering in what they say they're going to deliver. We're used to people half-stepping in their support of us. We're used to people half-stepping in giving us what they said they were going to give us. You know, a friend who says, I'll always be there for you. And then it seems like when you need them the most and you call them, they're not available. And it's sometimes it's not because people are just wicked. See, some folks are just wicked and trying to manipulate you. But most of the times it's the limitations of our humanity that prevents us from delivering in the things that we intend to deliver on. I want to set somebody free, right? Sometimes we are limited and no one has taught us to acknowledge our limitations, to realize that where I am now in my development as a human, there's certain things I'm not in a position to deliver on. And so we make promises that we're not really in a space to keep. I wish all of us could be so self-aware of our limitations. I wish all of us could know that there's some things I can handle and some things I can't handle. But the reality is most of us, we don't realize how limited we are until we get to a space that reveals our limitation. In other words, we generally believe we can do it till we get to that space and realize we can't do it. I'm talking to somebody. We generally believe that we can handle that job until we get to that job and we realize it's too much. We generally believe that we're prepared for marriage until we get married and then we realize, there's more to this than I considered. We generally believe that we're ready to start that business until we start that business and realize, there's some administrative skills that I wasn't prepared for. We generally believe that we were ready for home ownership until we buy the home and then we realize, it's not exactly the same like an apartment. There's some factors I didn't consider. We thought that we were ready. We didn't consider our limitations. We thought we were ready to be parents until we have kids and realize the sacrifice that it takes to love and to be selfless. We don't realize our limitations. We say we want to help somebody who's going through some mental illness until we realize what it truly demands. And it's like, had I known, I probably wouldn't have been as invested. There's nothing wrong with realizing that you're limited, but the problem is your limitations can sometimes hurt the person that was depending on you. And so what we tend to do, because we've been disappointed by the limitations of everybody around us, when we go to God, there's something in the back of our minds that's truly convinced that God has limitations too. And the reality is God is not limited in any shape, form, or fashion. God is so self-aware of who God is, and God is capable of handling everything and anything that exists within our dimension, because if it's in our dimension, it was by his will and or by his knowledge, and therefore there's nothing that catches God by surprise. So he's not limited the way we're limited. If God has limits, we'll never know or understand them, because God exists beyond our comprehension. But isn't it at the point of limitation that we ask God for help? Absolutely. See, but here's the thing. And this is a good question. At the point of your limitations, you should ask God for help without question. You should ask God for help. I want to word this correctly, because you can ask God for help, because I'm coming from a particular perspective. And so there's so many angles I can take that. And we could hit them all if y'all really down for it. We should ask God for help at the point of our limitation, but asking God for help doesn't mean that it will be us that God uses to fulfill it. In other words, we have to be focused on what the problem is and not so much on us being the vessel to solve the problem. Meaning, let me use the mental health thing as an example. You took on a friend or whatever that you're ready to be a support system for. You took them on, you love them, you had a heart for them, and you say, I'm gonna take them on and I'm gonna be their support, I'm gonna be there for them. Only to find out that what they're asking for is beyond what you can handle. You can go to God and say, God, I've reached my limits, I need your help. And God can grace you with more strength and more time and more whatever. God can grace you with that, but God can also grace you with a release to where it's no longer through you, but through another vessel. And for some of us, we take that as a rejection because we've attached our identity to our performance. We attach our identity to our ability to execute on the things that we say we can execute on, even if we make commitments beyond our limits. You see what I'm saying? And so we should always go to God when we reach our limits. But we should go to God knowing that how God deals with it is better than how we think we should be dealing with it. And that is where the point of faith lies. Because for some of us, our faith is only exercised if God does it how we thought it should be done. When God can see and know a better way, and we're asking for that, we say, like, hey, God, I want $1 million. And when God sees a better way for you to make $1 million instead of working overtime over and over again, sometimes it's like, no, God, just give me the promotion. Just have my job pay me more and I'll get the millions. And God is saying, I know something better than that. And if we're not open to that, ultimately, we're rejecting the very provisions we're asking for. And so this is where the ego kind of gets in the way. And sometimes we don't realize that ego until, you know what I mean? And sometimes it takes community, it takes the outside source to say, hey, guess what? That's ego. That's ego, right? And in my course, I deal with how we can overcome our ego, just throwing that in there. And so in this space, Jesus, the man says, my daughter is sick, she's dying. All right, and I want to stress this. I really don't want to preach. I don't want to preach because I don't want to be here all night. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm ready to go to bed. I'm tired, right? I don't want to be here all night, but this is such a good word. I want to have this conversation. So please ask your questions. Don't not ask your questions. Please comment. I want to have this conversation. His daughter is not just sick. He is fully aware that his daughter is dying. And as a parent, see, some of you, you're not parents, you have an idea, but you don't fully get it. To hear news that your child is dying and to now be in a position to link up with a man who has healed people and even raised people from the dead. It's like, Lord, if you can just lay hands on my child, I do not want my daughter to die. It's not like, this is not one of those, God, this would be nice. Even though we know death comes to all men, this is my daughter. As a parent, it would be ridiculous for me to think, for me to try to convince another parent to just let their child die because death comes to all men. No, that's my baby. You know what I'm saying? This is my daughter. No, God, no, I say no to death when it comes to my children. That's the energy he's bringing to Jesus. All right. Could we as a people suffer from maintaining the appearance of being ready for anything? That once we are in a situation that we aren't ready for, it breaks the illusion that created the illusion we created to maintain the look of being all together without our social circle or society. Abso-freaking-lutely. That's really what the ego creates, that illusion. We use the ego to project a perspective of ourselves that keeps us feeling good, that keeps us feeling secure. And so when we get into certain situations that bruise our ego, what's really happening is the perception, the projection that we created is now being challenged by a reality outside of ourselves. And it's revealing a reality within ourselves that we're not yet ready to handle. So you're absolutely right. Most of the devastation is in accepting the reality that the idea I created of who I am is not really me. That's what most of the challenge comes from. But that's a conversation about ego that we can have. Got nothing to do with particularly, well, it kind of does deal with this story, but it deals with the story a little later. But ego, that's the issue with ego. The issue with ego is we start to believe that the identity we created, the imagery that we created is actually who we are. And that works as long as we don't get into certain situations that now require us to really examine and stretch who we say that we really are. See, there's a point where hopefully by God's grace, you don't depend on ego to feel secure, but you can find a true knowledge of self that's not contingent on circumstances and situations. But that's a whole, as a matter of fact, you should watch the Identity series. And I think I talked a little bit about that with God is pleased with you. That's kind of the idea. Like you don't, to detach from identifying yourself based on your ability to perform and execute in certain situations and learning to accept who you are in spite of the situation you find yourself in. Because the situation is not you. You see what I'm saying? And who you are, God is pleased with. And so learning to discover the real you, removing all the layers and onions and false projections and societal pressures, removing all that, that's a work that requires time. I wish I could tell you at the end of one night you'll be ready, but no, there's so many layers, there's so many societal pressures, cultural pressures, financial pressures, relational pressures, and then just pressures that we have within ourselves that if I'm not this, then all of a sudden I'm less than. And so it takes time to really work through that because you have to be delicate with it. It's like when you find a fossil. I'm getting real geeky now, right? But when you find a fossil in the ground, you got to change tools because the idea now is no longer to just dig. Now you got to be delicate in your digging because you don't want to break something that is so precious. And sometimes that's what happens with us. We got to use gentle tools as we remove these layers so that we don't break ourselves more than what's necessary. But that if a break occurs, it was a break that could not be avoided, right? Like there was a tree growing, and look at me going to my preaching bag, right? There was a tree growing in my front yard, and the roots of the tree got into my pipes. It's terrible, terrible. The roots blocked my pipes to where it started backing up in the house. So then it was like, all right, we have to, we got to remove the tree. But before we remove the tree, we got to dig up those roots. Now, when I was digging up the roots, they told me, hey, the water line, the main water line is right here. And there's a good chance that we might bust the water line. We're not going to intentionally do it. But sometimes to fix this problem, we're going to have to break something else. But we can fix that too. And we'll ensure that when we fix the other thing that's broken, it would be better than what it was before. And it costs more because now I have to fix two problems. They broke the water line and I had to pay for it. But I didn't have to pay as much as if what they would normally charge me, the cost that it would normally cost was reduced because I'm paying for it while already in process of fixing something. Meaning it's not as if they had to start from scratch to fix what they broke. Because it broke in the midst of the process, it cost me less to fix what was broken in the midst of process. I hope y'all hear where the preaching is going, because sometimes in the path of healing, things get broken, but it's better that it breaks in healing, because you're already in the healing mode. We can fix it a lot easier. We can fix it a lot better. It won't cost you as much. It won't cost you as much. And so breaking those layers, we got to be as delicate as possible. But sometimes it hurts. It hurts to reveal those layers. All right. We tend to forget how much faith it took, right? Just to ask Jesus in the first place. Exactly. Jairus was working for the institution that wanted Jesus's downfall. There you go, Sean. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's absolutely true. To even ask Jesus to lay his hands on his daughter requires a certain level of faith. And I wish we dealt with that more, how the very request is an act of faith. For some of us, we only have enough faith to ask, right? And that sounds like it's not enough, but if you can open up your mouth and ask, then let's exercise as much faith as we possibly can to get the desire that we're asking for, but always trusting God to know what's best. Right? Tamira says the ego and the id in our brain are always in a struggle to be in control. Absolutely, without question. That's why there are some things we think/do that we don't even understand because of the constant tug and pull. Yes, the peeling the layers help greatly within therapy. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so dealing with ego and the id, and for those of you who registered for my course, we're going to get into that, because that's extremely important. We got to talk about that, how it's a false person designed to protect us, but it works in our favor until it doesn't work in our favor. And then we have to choose to either accept what is real or try to defend what was a facade in the first place. And so for a lot of us, it's difficult to accept the fact that, what I was asking for. No, I'm not going to jump ahead. So y'all almost got me. So Jairus says, now here's the thing about it. And I'm really mad. I'm looking at the time. I'm going to take my time. I'm not going to look at the time. I'm going to take my time. Jairus gave Jesus the solution. He said, lay hands on my daughter. I wonder sometimes, had Jairus just said, I want my daughter healed, if Jesus would have spoke a word like he's done for the Syrian and for so many other people, where Jesus didn't have to physically go there, but Jesus was able to just speak a word. But I think Jairus knew that his faith had to see Jesus do something. And that's important. That's important for us, because we can wish we had faith for other things. I'm really digging with some things. If I'm triggering you, I'm sorry, but I got to deal with some of this. Some of us, we want to believe we have faith for everything and anything. We want to believe that God could do it any old way, and we would believe and we would be in agreement. But for some of us, that's just not true. We need God to move a certain way, and that's okay. But in needing God to move a certain way, we have to also accept the limitations the limitations in needing God to move in that way. Because if you need Jesus, so if we use Jairus' example, if you need Jesus to touch your daughter for her to be healed, then you got to deal with the reality of distance and time. There's no avoiding that. If your faith is not there where Jesus could just speak a word and you'll be in agreement, if your faith is in a place where you have to see Jesus do something, then you have to also recognize that you are surrendering, or you have to be in agreement with space and time. Because to see it in the physical requires space and time. And so had he left it open-ended, Jesus probably could have chose, listen carefully, Jesus probably, because we don't know, but Jesus probably could have chose a solution that would have been more efficient and would have taken less space and time to bring about the deliverance or to bring about the desired end. But because our what we manifest is directly connected to our faith in the manifestation, and faith is not something you can fake. Faith is not You can't lie in the spirit. If you've been following me for a number of years, that's one of the things I used to say all the time. You cannot lie in the spirit. So you might convince everybody around you of whatever you want to convince them of. But when it comes to the things of God, when it comes to the space of the spirit, there is no lying. So it's better to just be in agreement with where you are, because some of you want strong faith. Some of you want strong faith, but you don't do anything to exercise that faith. Nothing gets strong without exercise, and there is no strength training without resistance. Natural law. Learn about it, right? All right. Sean says, faith enough to see Jesus in action. Absolutely. Absolutely. So Jesus agrees, and so he begins to walk. He begins to walk. He says, I'm going to walk. Let's go. Let's go. And they went off, and a large crowd was following him. So while he's on his way, there's a woman with the issue of blood who sees Jesus. She presses up to Jesus, and she touches the hem of his garment, right? She touches, Tamara says, your spirit be telling on you. And that's the truth. That's the truth. You can't lie in the spirit. Those of us with discernment, we see. We may not speak on what we see, but we see. She has the faith that says, once again, the faith, if I could just touch the hem. And so she touches the hem, and when she touches the hem, Jesus feels the power leaving her. So this is on his way to Jairus. Jesus is on his way to Jairus' daughter's location. This woman touches Jesus' hem. It stops Jesus. It stops Jesus. Jesus says, who touched me? They have a whole conversation because they're like, everybody touching. What are you talking about? And she's realized, no, this was a touch of faith. And if I had my time, I might deal with another day. But if I had my time, I would go into how all touches are not the same. You might be touching it, but by what spirit, by what energy are you touching? It makes a difference on the manifestation of that touch, right? So she touched Jesus with a touch of faith. They have a conversation, and Jesus said, listen, boo, listen, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be cured of your disease, right? And so it wasn't, I want to be clear, it wasn't the touch that made her well. It was the faith that moved her to touch that made her well. Because some of us, we got this thing mixed up. If you don't have faith, see, look, I'm already going to the difference of touch, right? If you don't have faith, then your action might be in vain. If you don't have a faith that says, my God, Lord Jesus, work with me, Spirit. If you don't have a faith that says this is going to succeed, then your action might be in vain. Man, but it could be hard sometimes. It could be hard. Okay. So this woman believed and touched, and they had a conversation, and then she was healed. And then what happens? In the midst of the journey, verse 35, Mark 5, verse 35. So now I'm jumping down to 35. Let me put it in the comments so that y'all could pick up, but I want y'all to read the whole thing. But I jumped down to Mark 5 or 35. Now I'm going to read this. It says, while he was still speaking, see, so he's talking to this woman who was just healed. It says, while he was still speaking, while he was in the midst of conversation with the woman, it says, people came from the house of the synagogue official, Jairus' house, saying, your daughter has died. Why bother the teacher further? Right. So Jesus was on his way. That was Mark 5, verse 35. Jesus was on his way. He said, yes, I'm going to heal your daughter. While on the way, there was an interruption. While on the way. And that interruption took up some time. How much time, we don't know, but it took up some time. And then people from the house gets to him and says, hey, your daughter died. It's over. Your daughter died. It's over. I can only imagine the devastation that I would feel as a father to know that I'm doing all that I can do to save my daughter's life. And the interruption slowed me down. And now I get word that she's dead all the thoughts that go on. Because we don't know if the interruption slowed him down to the point where she couldn't hold on any longer. We don't know if she died when he got to Jesus, because we don't know how far he was from the house. And he could have got to Jesus and it was already too late. All these what ifs, we don't know, but there's an interruption here, and it's like, man, Jesus, you took too long. You took too long. I told you my daughter was dying. This random woman touches you, and yeah, she's healed. That's cool, but now I can't get what I asked for, and you said yes. You said yes, and now I can't get it because you took too long. Or maybe I took too long. It just didn't happen. If I took too long, why didn't you just tell me no instead of getting me excited, thinking I'm about to get what I asked for? You're Jesus. Come on, you're connected. I've seen you do this spiritual work. If my daughter was dead when I got here, why didn't you just tell me? Instead of walking with me and getting me excited to think that you're about to intervene on something, and now look, my daughter is dead. Can y'all imagine what that feels like? When it looked like God said yes, who am I? Man, I'm talking to somebody. When it looked like God said yes, and things look like they're progressing forward, and then it looks like there's an interruption, only to find out that the opportunity is no longer available. It's dead. It's dead. Tamir says, my God, being human really prevents us to truly see things move. Having enough faith to see things move is a strength that we can't bear on our own. The Holy Spirit really is our x-ray vision as we move in this life. Absolutely. And so let me say this. The issue is not about being human. I know what you mean by that, but the issue is not about being human. The issue is about not being connected to the Spirit. Because as humans, we should have vision. Because everything Jesus did, we could do it even further. Our problem is we are humans who depend more on the physical than the spiritual. We are humans who don't understand the balance between the spiritual and the physical, right? Because the church has done a good job in pitting the physical and the spiritual against each other. No, the physical is one realm, the spiritual is another realm, and the physical realm, it has its limitations. The spiritual realm is so vast and unlimited. And so we should work in tandem in both, but we tend to lean more towards what we can see physically versus what we can sense spiritually. And so this man is going through it. And so the scriptures say that Jesus overheard, but Jesus overhearing what was being said to Jairus or the synagogue official, do not be afraid, only believe. Now, this is where I want to get to that. I want to get to that space. Sean says we tend to think and believe that faith delayed is actually faith denied, and that's true. It's not, but I'm gonna tell you something, Sean, and this is why I'm glad you said it before I said this, because it's so real. When you're dealing with death, it's hard to believe beyond death. Can we just take that time to be honest? I just want to know, is this a safe space where we can be honest about what death does to our spirit, what death does to our psyche? When death shows up, it's hard to believe beyond death. It's hard. It's hard. Yeah. Tamira said, yeah, that's a hard one to swallow. We being wanting it now. No, absolutely. You know, Sean says facts, right? Like, I wish I don't want to perpetuate part of the problem in the preaching of this text, because we miss the reality that, my daughter died. The only thing I can bank on now, and sometimes, look, we about to go here. Sometimes the only thing we could bank on is God telling us to believe. Here's the thing, y'all. I'm gonna keep it 1,000. I'm gonna keep. Hold on. Sheila said something. I want to read what Sheila said. Yeah, at that point when the daughter died, I would have been like, well, I'm going home. 1,000%. 1,000%. Here's the thing. Jesus, hearing it, said, okay, it is absolutely right that she died. I understand to quit now. It makes sense to quit now. In fact, it makes perfect sense to quit now. But I'm telling you to believe. This is the difference. I need to I'm getting my dance on a little bit, because sometimes all we have to hold on to now is the word of God. We're looking at the situation. And when I say the word of God, I don't mean the Bible. I don't mean the scriptures. I mean the word that God spoke to us. I mean the word that God told us. When God told us yes, and then everything fails and everything falls to crap, right? And now it's all over. On the physical sense, it's done. And then God speaks an additional word that says, no, keep believing. Sometimes that's all we have. And this is why it is so important that you check yourself and that you check your circle, because sometimes your desires will try to imitate the word of God. And so you think because you want it, that means God is telling you you're going to get it. And I hate to bust your bubble, but you can want it till you're blue in the face. Unless it's God telling you that you're going to get it, it don't matter how bad you want it. But the moment God says, I still got you to hold on and believe, then it don't matter what it looked like. It don't matter what nobody says. It does not matter. You need to trust God at his word, and you can't do that if you don't have a relationship that has proven to you that God is trustworthy. Because I'm gonna tell you something, man. If my daughter dies and someone comes to me and says, just keep believing, I'm gonna look at them kind of crazy, like, yo, come on, bro. Who are you? But if I go in my prayer closet and God says, listen, bro, I'm about to do something amazing, I need you to believe, my prayer is that I would have enough faith to say, God, I'm trusting you. But my other prayer would be, God, I need you to help my unbelief, because so many have gone down this path and didn't come back out. And I ain't never seen it in front of me, somebody coming out. So if you're telling me that there's more to do, then I'm going to hold on to it, God. But please don't disappoint me. I can't handle a disappointment now that my daughter is dead. I could accept the death of my daughter, but please, God, don't give me any more hope if you're not going to give her life. I don't want another form of, I don't want, if she's not going to breathe and if I can't hold her and feel her warmth, don't tell me to believe in nothing. I don't need another alternative, God. I don't need another perspective. I would hope that some of us could be honest with God, because at this point, Jarius doesn't need a vision of his daughter. Jarius doesn't need to believe that she's in a better place. If Jesus is telling him to believe, then Jesus now is creating an expectation that his daughter is going to live again. And so there are times where when God gives us a word, we need to be clear and say, God, if you're telling me this, then this is what I'm expecting. Don't play me, God. Do not play me. Do not play me. Let me see what Sheila said. Sheila said, let's be real. That would be real hard to believe once it got that far. Absolutely. Absolutely. And now he's shouting, right? Because I went through that whole rant. No, absolutely. Once it gets to that space where it's like, yo, your daughter's dead, it's hard for Jesus. But this is what I love about God. And I've been sharing this with a lot of people, right? That's what I love about God. When things make sense, but it's not within God's will, God will interrupt. God will interrupt the thing that is speaking against his intention. I'm going to say that again. Because I want to make sure that you understand what I'm saying. When things make sense, meaning they work with natural law, meaning they work with logic, meaning they work with wisdom, meaning they are in harmony with righteousness, meaning that you are a wise individual. When things look good, but it's not God's intention, God will speak up and interrupt it. Because God expects you to walk in wisdom. God expects you to walk in righteousness. God's not going to tell you everything all the time. You should learn and grow and mature. But if something looks right, it's like, yeah, we've seen this. This is the righteous way. This is the good way. This is the logical way. But it's not what God is intending for you. God will interrupt it. God will interrupt it. So Jesus overhearing it. See, Jairus wasn't going to go to Jesus and ask him, should I keep believing? Why would Jairus even do that? His daughter is dead. It makes sense to be like, well, my daughter is dead. It's over. But Jesus overhearing it, recognizing the sense that it's making, yeah, why bother me because she's dead? I'm going to tell you why you should bother me, because that's not my intention. I would have never started walking with you if my intentions was for her to die. Yeah. See, look, I could shout about that because I know how the story ends. But I also understand when you're in the midst of a thing, When you're in the midst of a thing and it looks like it's dying, but God already showed you signs that it was gonna get better, and then poof, it just dies. I understand when you're in the midst of a thing, it's like, oh man, this sucks. It looks like I messed up somewhere. Maybe I lost faith here. Maybe you try to make sense of a thing, but when in reality, Jesus is still on the move. God is still on the move. He hasn't. Death doesn't stop God. My God. Tamara said, faith as small as a mustard seed is really small. To know that God said that because he knew that our faith would have its struggles, that all we needed was a small grain of a mustard seed to see him move. My God, he knows his children. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sheila said, maybe we aren't going to God enough. We aren't in tune with what he told us. I like that. I like that. I like that. Too busy occupying ourselves with the noise that the environmental factors that may or may not have something to do with that desire. You're talking now, because that's the reality. Sometimes it is very noisy. And we're not in tune with God. Sometimes we're more in tune with our desires than we are with the divine, right? And so, yes, we're not always hearing what God says. We forgot what God said, but we're also not hearing what God is saying. See, because this is the good news, right? God said, Jesus was walking with them. Because when you really go back, Jesus didn't say anything as far as what's recorded. He just started walking with Jairus, which is saying something. And then when the daughter dies, the new word is a affirmation of the old word, meaning keep believing. Nothing has changed in terms of my intention. See, things change. Your daughter was alive when you came to the request. Now your daughter is dead, and that's a major shift. It's such a major shift that I'm going to give you a fresh word. Shit! I'm going to give you a fresh word so that your faith will not waver. See, God knows. God knows. Sometimes I wonder if we really understand that God knows. When things are happening in our life, God sees it. God hears it. God knows. And he will speak to us in the current, in the relevant. God knows. We just want to be sure that we're listening to God and not to greed. Hello. We want to be sure that we're listening to the divine and not to just our desires. We want to be in tune with the spiritual so that we can receive the fresh revelation. And that's and to stay in tune, that's where the work comes in. The work to stay in tune, because like Sheila said, there's so much noise around us that it can distract us from what God is saying. And so we need to do the work to stay in tune. We need to do the work to stay in tune. Like what we talked about last week, squaring yourself, going in prayer, going in fasting, going in meditation, being in tune, being intentional to be in tune so that those negative frequencies don't come and interrupt you. It's like what we talked about last week. If you didn't see last week's Friday experience, you want to go watch it. It's called Squaring Your Circle and Yourself. Because this is kind of like a part 2 to that if we really look at it. And so Jesus says, only believe. All right, verse 37. And he allowed no one to accompany him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, right? So now, remember now, okay, because that verse might not make any sense if you forget. Remember, there was a large crowd accompanying Jesus at first. Now the daughter died. Now the daughter dies, and Jesus says, all right, we need to reduce the amount of company that's here. Because the company here, everyone who is accompanying me doesn't have the faith in me. And so sometimes we're going to see it again, but I'm going to say it now in case somebody logs off, right? Sometimes you need to change your circle because they don't believe like you need them to believe. Hear what I'm saying? It's not that they're unbelievers in general, but what you're asking God to do and what God has confirmed that he's going to do, some of your company may not be in agreement with what God said. And so once you see that they're not in agreement with what God said, you need to be able to kick them out your circle. See, in the circle, Jesus kicked them out because he's in the flesh. So he's able to say, yeah, y'all not coming. Y'all not coming. What things have changed, but my intentions have not. But see, if things had not changed, you could witness some things because your level of doubt would not impact what's about to manifest. But at this point, we need to remove all doubt in order to manifest what's about to come. And I need to pause here because some of us don't really understand the power of doubt in relation to the power of faith, because faith is powerful, but doubt is also powerful. And some of us, we're comfortable with doubting because it's the human thing to do. We need to check our doubt. And we need to check those who encourage our doubt. And let me be clear. Let me be clear. When I say encourage the doubt, what I'm saying is where they don't leave any room or possibility for the promise to manifest. Because there's a difference between someone doubting you and somebody holding you accountable. Can we talk about it? Can we talk about it? Sheila said the company wasn't in agreement. Absolutely. Sean said, plus the crowd, so we're crying at first, started laughing. See, we didn't get there yet when Jesus said she was going to live. We didn't get there yet, Sean, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there. See, because this is a different crowd. And I just repeat that even when I was reading the story, because there were two crowds. There was the crowd following Jesus, and then there was the crowd that was already there, Sean. And you know the crowd that was already there, the professional mourner, because Sean is an educated brother. That's why I could talk to Sean like this, right? You know the crowd that was already there, the professional mourners that were already there to be on assignment, right? They were already called, and they're already doing their ministry to mourn the death of this daughter. So when Jesus comes and said, no, she ain't dead, she's asleep, they laughed at him because their ministry was not in life, but in death. Oh, shit. You need some people, their ministry is in death, and you need them when death is acceptable, when death comes at its proper time. But when we're expecting life, we need to kick out those who have a ministry of death. You don't have space here. I'm about to run. You don't have space to be in here because we're not looking for those whose ministry is in death. We're looking to only have those whose ministry and faith is in life. See, I was going to say that, Sean, but you brought us there, and I thank you, because the reality is when you hear somebody laughing at what God said was going to happen, when they're laughing, then it's time to kick them out. When they're laughing, then it's time to kick them out, because some of us, we don't realize that laughter is an impediment. God has a tendency to show up when people laugh at his word. Y'all not hearing what I'm saying? Do I even need to do my preacher thing and go down the list of those who laughed at God and then God ended up showing up and showing out? See, I don't care if people laugh at what God told me. Yeah, go ahead and laugh. My God has a way of showing up and showing out. As a matter of fact, I want you to laugh louder. I want you to laugh harder, but I need you to laugh out there. Don't stay in my circle. Laugh outside of my circle, because I need this thing to manifest. I need this thing to happen. And so Jesus kicks them out, and he saves Peter, James, and John. Those are the three close ones, right? He gets to the house. He sees them weeping and wailing. He tells them, "You got to go." No, he didn't tell them you got to go. He said the daughter's gonna live. They laughed at him. So then he kicks them out. He said, "All right, y'all want to laugh?" I'm reading the verse. And they began laughing at him, but putting them all outside. See, before he brought life into that woman, he said, you need to go. Look at what Sean said. Sean said, "No, bro, you can stop at Isaac, but that's for another time." Come on, somebody. See, Sean know his word. So I'm sorry for those of you who might be lost, but go back and read Genesis so you can see. So you can be like on the wave with me and Sean and others who aren't speaking. I know y'all get it. I know I got some Bible scholars and Bible students that watch the Friday Experience, right? So he said, and they began laugh. This is verse 40. They began to laugh at him, but putting them outside. See, that's important. We don't want to skip that. Putting them outside, he took along the child's father and mother and his own companions, that was Peter, James, and John, and entered the room where the child was in bed. So listen. He didn't take any doubters into that space. Now we're in the space of manifestation. We're in the space where we're now we need God to move. We're in the space of manifestation. Jesus made sure that none of the doubters were in that space. So I want you to look at this. I want you to understand. I want y'all to understand. So this works in multiple ways. One is you're going to have to kick some folk out your life. Some folk, they not in harmony with what God is saying. First, I should really go first, right? First, you got to make sure God said what he said. Can we start there? Make sure God said what he said. You want to do your good. Don't be so arrogant and so prideful and so greedy to not verify that God said what he said. So however you verify, whether that's in prayer, whether that's in fasting, whether that's in meditation, whether that's in journaling, whether that's in studying the scriptures, whether that's in stargazing, whatever you do, however the Most High communicates with you to confirm his word and to speak his word in your life, you want to make sure God said what he said. That's number one. Now, number two, you want to make sure that there are no doubters in the space of manifestation. So what that means is if you know that they're doubters, you need to kick them out. You need to kick them out. Get up on out of here. And that might look like you physically kicking them out, like you can't live here no more, right? That might be physically like, yeah, I'm never going to talk to you again. But sometimes it's just you stop informing. Listen to me, because I need y'all to get this. You stop informing those who've proven to be doubters. Some of y'all talk too much. Some of you talk too much. You're so busy trying to convert the doubters into believers instead of just allowing the doubters to stay on the outside. Once you know what, you don't really believe, I'm gonna just keep you out. I'm gonna keep you out because you don't believe. You have no room for faith. You have no room for faith. You're thinking that it's impossible. You're not really trying to help me analyze the situation. You're not really trying to help me stay focused on what God said. You're trying to put your doubt on me. You want me to believe like you. I can't inform you anymore on what's going on. But what if, all right, Tamara says, but what if you're the doubter? I'm gonna be honest with you, and you're not gonna like this. She said, how do you kick yourself out? Don't go in. Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. If your doubt is so strong, then that's not the space for you. Let me find the verse as I'm talking, because it's important. It talks about how Jesus could not perform any miracles because they didn't believe. Jesus couldn't do any miracles because they did not believe. Look, it's Matthew 13, verse 58. It says, and he did not do any miracles there because of their unbelief. Matthew 13, verse 58. Let me put that in the comments. And I hate to be the one to have to tell you that, but you can't expect a miracle until your faith is in line. You need to spend some time going back into relationship with God. Going back, when I say back, not like you and God had a fallout, but you need to spend, because only God can convince you that what he's saying is true. If you're looking for man to help you with that, then it's a lost cause. I'm sorry. It's a lost cause. Only God can help convince you that what he promised will come to pass. And so if you are the doubter, then you need to accept that you're not ready to receive what you're asking for. But if you have just a little bit of faith, you have some doubt, you have a lot of doubt, but you have just a little bit of faith in what God said, not in what you want, not in the possibilities of things, but in the confirmed word of the Lord. If you have just a little bit of faith that what God said might just happen, then you entertain that little bit of faith and you ignore the doubt. You've acknowledged it, you recognize there's some doubt here, but you don't entertain it, you don't feed it. Help my unbelief. God, I believe. Help my unbelief. God, I have it, but Lord, I'm down in some parts, but I believe. Look, just this little bit of faith, you want to exercise that, because there's a difference. See, some of us think that faith is the absence of doubt. Faith is believing in the absence of doubt, but faith is really believing in spite of it. Whether doubt is present or not, if you have faith, you exercise that. You believe that. You affirm that. You declare that. But you need to examine yourself and be honest. Just let there be a little bit of faith. Just believe a little bit and yoke that little bit. You just talked about, Tamir, about the faith the size of a mustard seed, right? It doesn't need a lot. It just needs to be enough. Just small and strong. Because if you ever held a mustard seed, it is strong. It is small. But a lot of people don't talk about how strong that seed is. Can't just crush it with your fingers. It got some tension on it, got some resistance on it. It's a strong seed, though it's a small seed. Your faith doesn't have to be large to be strong. Who am I preaching? Somebody needs to hear this word. Your faith does not have to be large to be strong. You can have small, strong faith, and that's enough to move mountains. So if you're the doubter, listen. Go back to God and just get that little bit of faith. And when you get that faith, then you need to exercise that faith. That's because faith without works is, y'all going to type it when y'all hear it, right? Because I know there's a delay in the video, but y'all know faith without works is dead, right? So you need small faith that you can exercise that's strong. That is strong faith. Sean says we have to get to the place of the Father in Mark 9:24. Yep, then I believe help me with my doubts. Absolutely. Sheila says doubting is where you have accepted it's not going to happen. Fear is the hesitation to step out on that thing. I don't think you have to accept it won't happen when you fear, but letting too much fear in, exercising that fear can invite in the doubt. There you go. You preaching now, Sheila. Absolutely. And so if you're the doubter, the party where you need to recognize I'm doubting this can manifest and question it. Why am I doubting? What am I trusting in? What are some of the ideas that I've accepted? What are some of the things that life has taught me that's caused me to believe that this can never happen? And go through that process. Just go through that process. You might need to go through that process through pastoral counseling, right? That's what I offer. You might need to go through that process through therapy. You might need to just go through that process, over some drinks with a trusted friend. You might need to go through that process through journaling, right? Whatever you got to do to go through that process, figure it out. Figure out why. What is it about this promise? Because remember, it's something that you heard from God. God said, I'm going to do it. So it's no longer like in this realm of possibility. It is now, thus says the Lord. I know I'm putting some weight on it, but yeah, that's kind of the weight. If God is telling me this is going to happen and I'm doubting what God is saying, why? Where did this learned behavior come from? And this is why therapy is so important, because we might need to unlearn some things. You might have heard somebody trust God and it didn't work out for them, and your subconscious took a note of that, said noted. And so now when certain things are bigger than you, when God made it abundantly clear, you might have that doubt and that hesitation. That might be possible. And so now you need to be able to learn. You need to be able to go through that process to realize I'm not them and they're not me. What they went through doesn't mean I'm going to go through that. You know how many people look, I'm an entrepreneur, right? I'm an entrepreneur. I know people who started businesses and their businesses failed. I started businesses and they failed, right? Businesses did not take off. They did not go far. And because of that, people create this idea that, going to business is risky because most businesses fail. And it's true, most businesses do fail. But there are businesses that are successful. And so if I'm going to go into business, I have to go into business believing that I will succeed. But then I also have to believe enough in the success of my business to learn certain things to ensure the success. But the moment, if I go into it believing that I'm going to fail, I could say I'm going to succeed till I'm blue in the face. But if I truly doubt the success of my business, then any form of opposition and resistance will be enough for me to quit what I started, because I never believed it was going to work in the first place. And that goes for marriages. That goes for job opportunities. That goes for ministries. That goes for addictions. Hello, somebody. You're addicted to whatever it might be, and you're trying to break that addiction, but you honestly don't believe you can break that addiction. That addiction. That means the first urge for whatever you're addicted to, you're gonna fall right into it because your brain said we can't break it in the first place. I don't think we fully understand how that mindset sets up the atmosphere for manifestation. and how other people's mindset can get in the way of what God is trying to manifest for us. If it didn't matter, Jesus would have never kicked them out. I'm gonna say that again because I need you to understand that some of your circles are not in favor of you. Some of the people you are inviting, and you're inviting them by informing them. Some people you are inviting are slowing down the manifestation of what God is trying to give you because their doubt is influencing your faith. It could even be your spouse. Their doubt is influencing your faith. And so you don't believe, and you don't, because faith is not just believing, but faith is putting your belief in action. And that's why you should only have faith in God, because faith in anything else could be detrimental. So if God said it and I believe it, then I'm going to put that belief in action. But if I have a circle of people who don't believe that God said what he said, then their doubt is going to influence my action, which will influence my faith, which will influence my belief, which will then influence my doubt. And so Jesus kicked them out, said, you got to go. He didn't go into the room with that little girl until he kicked them out. Then he took the girl by the hand. He spoke in tongues. Girl got up. And now this is the part. This is what I'm talking about. He said, immediately the girl got up, began to walk, for she was 12 years old. And there's a 12 thing that, I won't go into right now. I'm going to say that for another preaching moment. And immediately they were completely astonished. They were astonished. Now, these are the ones in the room with faith, but they was astonished. And then this is what it says in 43. And he gave them strict orders that no one was to know about this. I think that's important. I'll read the rest. And he told them to give, to give her something to eat. But look, the girl came up from the dead. The girl came up from the dead. And Jesus says, don't tell nobody. First of all, when they see her, they'll know that she's alive. But don't fight the urge to prove your doubters wrong. See, Tamara, I just answered your question. Fight the urge to prove your doubters wrong. Let me drop this because it's already late, but I'm gonna say this because I think some of us we need to learn this. Whatever you give attention to, you give ascension to. Whatever you give attention to, you give ascension to. And some of you don't realize how you're feeding doubt by entertaining it. Yeah, I'm trying to prove them wrong. No. You don't got to prove nothing to them. You don't have to prove a thing to them. You let them doubt as long as they're doubting on the outside. You just make sure you believe. And when God starts moving, just keep your mouth shut. Avoid the urge to invite more doubt. Keep your mouth shut. Enjoy what God is doing in your life. Give God praise and glory for what God is doing in your life. Make sure you feed the manifestation, right? He told her, give her something to eat, right? Make sure you feed the manifestation. Some blessings and lessons are only for the individual. That's right. And for those in the room, everything ain't for everyone. Every good thing is not a testimony. I know we live in this time because everybody wants attention. Everybody wants validation. I'm going to say it as it is, right? Everybody's looking for attention. Everybody's looking for validation. And the testimony time has given people room to talk about some things they really don't need to be talking about. I'm be honest with you. Everything that God does for you ain't for somebody else. What God is doing for you is for you. It's for your faith. It's for your walk. It's for your journey. And you don't realize why would you even try to make space for these doubters to come back in your life? See, some of us, we have attachment issues. I'm clapping to wake some of you up. We have attachment issues and we can't let go of the things that aren't good for us. And so we're always trying to justify their presence in our life instead of accepting the reality that I need to cut them off because they are in the way of what God is doing for me. They're in the way of they're in my way in letting me exercise what God has for me. So I don't talk to them about what God did. Because when you try to talk, you know what's going to happen, right? You know what's going to happen. They say, hey, Jesus came to the room. He raised us from the dead. Oh, that's not what really happened. You know, she must have not really been dead. She must have just been unconscious. Her pulse must have been. They will try to nullify the miracle. They will try to make it sound as if what happened didn't happen. So you know what? I don't even need to tell you what happened. When they see, hey, I heard your daughter died, but she's walking around. Yeah, praise be to God. What happened? To God be the glory. Great things he has done. I ain't telling you nothing because you're a doubter and you don't need to be in my inner circle. Look, this whole thing, only God can judge. I need you to judge who the doubters are and kick them out of your circle. I need you to have enough discernment to look at those doubters and say, you know what? I'm going to stop inviting you with information. I'm going to stop ascending you with attention. I'm kicking you out. Here's your pink slip. You're out of my life. I don't need you here. You have to love yourself and your purpose enough to make sure there's no room for doubters in your life. If you don't love yourself enough for that, why would you expect a doubter to respect your faith? You should have enough love for your faith to make sure doubters aren't even close to what God is doing. You watch from outside. And you should feel no type of shame about it. I know some of us, we're not used to being this assertive. We're not used to being in this much control. But I'm here to speak a word over your life to let you know that God is pleased when you kick the doubters out. It could be your mama, your daddy, your uncle, your spouse, your children. It don't matter who it is. You kick the doubters out. It could be your sister, someone you grew up with for 35 years and you're only 20. Right? You just kick the doubters out your life. If you're a doubter, there's no space for you. As a matter of fact, you should be so filled with faith that doubters feel uncomfortable. Right? You should be talking so much. I'm sorry, not talking so much, but your language and your energy should be so much about faith that doubters don't even want to be there. They're like, you know, this person crazy. They don't understand how the world works. And they just mosey on now. Yeah. But it's okay. What they think don't matter, because if they out the room and God raises your daughter from the dead, who cares what they thought? Who cares what they're thinking? You got your daughter back. You got your daughter back. I don't care. Look, if I prayed for something and it looked like I wasn't going to get it, and I kicked some people out my life and then I got it, I'm not inviting those people back in. Now, that's just me. Clearly, your presence was impacting the promise. Clearly, there was something about your mindset that affected this manifestation. So why would I bring you back into my life only for you to put limits on the next thing God's going to bring me? No. If you're going to be converted, you're going to be converted from the outside. You're going to be converted from the outside, because you don't need to be in here to be converted. I'm going to let God deal with you out there. And whatever little sprinkles from my life that you see, hopefully it impacts your faith. And if it does and you want back in, I'm going to need to see some changed character. But I'm not just going to let you close. I'm not going to bring you in close simply because we have history. Our history is not more important than God's manifestation in my life. Period. Tamira says, it's hard to keep your mouth shut when all you want to do is show others that it actually happened. Absolutely. But the need to show others, that's stuff you work out in therapy. I'm telling you, and I know this might sound crazy. I'm telling you, that desire to show others, that need for them to see that I'm not crazy, that I wasn't losing my mind, the need to show them. See, God's going to show them. You won't need to show them. You showing them don't benefit you. It feel like you're doing the front end, but when you start to realize the audacity they have to reject indisputable proof that God did what he said he's going to do. Maybe some of y'all haven't seen that type of audacity yet. Oh, it exists. It exists. People just who don't believe won't believe. Not outside of a miracle. You know, it's a miracle to be converted. It's a miracle to be a believer. You didn't choose that. That was the grace of God that you chose. The grace of God working in you and that you accepted. Not even really chose, but you accepted. It was a miracle for you to be a believer. Sheila said, Sheila said, you are no longer welcome. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sean said, like Jill Scott says, getting in the way of what I'm feeling. Absolutely. Absolutely. The blessing's going to come from sprinkles like Salt Bay at that point, because you are on the outside. Absolutely. That's it. That's it. And so we want to fight that urge. I am saying this, and look, those who are going to watch the replay, they're going to look at this like, yo, this was mad long. But you want to fight the urge to try to prove every doubter wrong. You don't have, I'm going to say this. You don't have the time or the energy to give to vampires, doubters, bloodsuckers, faith vacuums. You don't have the time or the energy to give to them. Your time and your energy, your resources is going to be in building and maintaining what God has blessed you with. That's what your time and energy is going to go towards. Building and maintaining what God has blessed you with. You don't have the time to prove the doubters wrong. Because I promise you, even though they're on the outside, the light that God has placed in you is so bright that they'll see it and they'll have to work it out within themselves. They don't need to be in your presence. You don't need to hear from them. Tamira said, why are you pointing at me though? Yes, you. Absolutely. I got to get my nails done. Yeah, I get manicures, guys. I'm married and my wife, I love her. I want to make sure I don't scratch her up. No, absolutely. It is not your job. It is not your job to prove the doubters wrong. Good to see you, bro. It is not your job. God will prove them wrong. Look, God sets a table before you in the presence of your enemies. You know what that means? That means they're not sitting at the table. He didn't prepare a table so you can invite your haters on the table. You can invite your doubters to the table. No, they're just close enough to see a table that they'll never sit at. Why? Because they're your enemies. It don't even say I'm going to convert your enemies into friends. I don't know where Christians got that from. You as a believer, you're going to have some enemies. Look, DJ says, all I do is pray for them. That's all you can do. As a believer, you're going to have some enemies. And guess what? They're going to stay on the outside. They are going to stay on the outside. Because we don't fight against flesh and blood, but against principalities and power. There's a spirit in them that's working against you. And if they can't recognize that spirit within them, they don't need to be in your presence. If they can't recognize that spirit enough to work it out of themselves, they don't need to be in your presence. If God wants to use you to get to them, he'll give you a word, just like he gave you the word that manifests the miracle in the first place. It's the same God, y'all. It's the same God. And so don't be making windows. Don't be building doors to bring doubters back into your life. No, you stay out there. You stay right where you are. And don't let nobody make you feel like you're doing something wrong for protecting your peace and your faith. because people will try to make you feel guilty for doing what's best for you. Anybody that tries to make you feel guilty for doing what's best for you needs to be on the outside. Needs to be on the outside. And I'm not talking about accountability. I'm talking, look, because accountability means they are rooting for you and they're just ensuring that, you're considering these things. And when you say, look, I got it, they on your team. All right, let's go. If you got it, I got it. What you need? You need me to pray? I got you. What you need? Like those are those who are helping you be accountable. But the doubters are the ones who are like, nah, if you still moving forward, then you don't get it. If you still move, how you going to tell me? How you going to tell me what God? Let me deal with that with God. If I'm, and I'm going to say this with all goodness and all sincerity. But if God isn't clear to me, then I need God to work that out within me. God, why am I confused by what you're saying? Help me understand. Because I'm hearing them say something and what they're saying even makes some sense, but you're saying something that sounds completely different. I'm sure that's what you're saying. I'm kicking them out, God, because they look like some doubters. But you make it work. If God is steering me wrong, that's between me and God. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's between me and God if God is steering me wrong. If God is trying to teach me a lesson, then you should still stay out the way. Let God deal with me because I'm his child. Trust God. I trust God enough to know that he's going to deal with me how he needs to deal with me in love, in joy, in peace, in discipline, in temperance. God is going to ensure that I become the best version of myself. If you can't support what God is doing in my life, then you need to be on the outside. Period. 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 Only people in my inner circle are those who are ready to support what God is doing in my life. Support what God is doing in my life. So, with that being said, breathe in, breathe out. Repeat after me. Say, I am a child of God, and I am worthy to receive this word. Tabera said, why are you speaking to me, though? This has been my year's theme. Listen, to God be the glory. To God be the glory. Take heed. Take heed. I am a child of God. Come on. Say it. Say it loud. Say it with your chest. I am a child of God, and I am ready. I am worthy to receive this word. And I want you to breathe deep. I want you to ask yourself, who let the doubters in? That should have been the title. I'm going to start telling Sean what I'm going to talk about so Sean can come up with titles, because Sean would have thought of that. Who let the doubters in? Who let the doubters in? Who let the doubters in? Kick them out. God, I pray that you give everyone listening a spirit of discernment to see those who have been doubting them from the beginning, that they may see the doubt, that they may see that that person's intentions is not well for them, that that person has never believed that you were going to move in a miraculous way, that that person never even had enough love for them to pray and intercede on their behalf, to check their own spirit. God, I pray that you'll give them discernment that they will see every doubter that's in their life. And I pray that after you give them the discernment to see the doubters, that you'll give them the strength to kick them out of their lives in Jesus' name. God, I pray that you'll give them the wisdom on how to kick them out, God, to know those who need a clean cut where they're even blocked on all areas versus those who just need to create some distance and space where they're on the outside and they can see in, but they're not on the inside where they're close to affect the manifestation. God, bless them with that in Jesus' name. Who let the doubters in? It's time that they get out. It's time that they get out. It's time that they get out. We need to kick the doubters out. God, I pray for every person who has a spirit of doubt even within them. God, those people who within them, they are doubting and they're struggling to exercise their faith because their doubt is overwhelming. I pray that you will grace them with a strength and a trust to exercise their faith. God, I pray that you will grace them with more confirmation of your word, that they will learn how to trust in your word. God, I pray that you will put them on a path of healing where past traumas and past disappointments and past experiences will be healed so that they may receive your word with a fresh heart and a fresh ear. For your word says that you will remove the stony heart and put a heart of flesh in there. Your word says that you will give them a new heart, that you will give them a clean heart and renew a spirit within them. God, I ask that you will heal them, that you will put them on a path of healing so that they may be able to receive your word with a fresh identity, and that they may see how you will manifest great things in their life. In Jesus' name, amen. We need y'all to be healed. We need y'all to be healed. And if you've been letting them in, like Tamara said, let me put that back up. You've been letting them in, kick them out. Once you realize, oh, I let a hater in, I let a doubter in, kick them out. God, give Tamara the strength to kick them out. God, you know what she's been going through. Give her the strength to kick them out. God, give her the wisdom to know that they are doubters and it is time for them to go. Give her, God, the grace and the strength to kick them out. God, give her the community. God, surround her with those who are not doubters, that she may know that she still has support even as she kicks her doubters out. May she not invite them with information. May she not ascend them with attention, God, but may she kick them out in Jesus' name. We're going to be healed. We're going to be healed. We're going to be healed. Go change the title of this. Who let the doubters in? Absolutely. I might. I honestly might. I might change the title for real. I might change the title for real. But listen, I'm glad that y'all stayed with me thus long. If you enjoyed this, share it. Please share it because people need to see it. People need to know. They'll only know if you share it. Sharing is completely free. Liking is completely free. Subscribing is completely free. Whatever you can do for free to help the ministry, by all means. You can also give, donate. The website, Cash App. I have my Venmo for some of you who do my Venmo, my Zelle. There's so many ways that you can support the ministry, but this was on-time word, I believe. I mean, I think all of them are on-time words. If you haven't seen Squaring Your Circle in Yourself, you need to go watch that because bad company corrupts good character. Beware of those who you let in. It's extremely important that you know who is around you and that you act accordingly. Don't get mad at the people around you. Just remove them if they shouldn't be there. You have the control. You have the authority. No one is forced into your life. No one is forced into your life. No one is forced into your life. You have the authority to remove them if need be. Not kill them. Don't kill them. Just remove them. Create space, create distance in Jesus' name. Y'all be blessed, man. I love you guys, man. Happy Sabbath. And I'll see y'all next week. Peace.